Hello and well met. This is Founder Leroon with Fantasy Grounds College. Today we are going to work on some content for the Homage to Dark Alliance, the video game. Just came out a few days ago, maybe 2 days ago. My kids are already playing it on the console. Not saying it's the best game in the world, but it's definitely some good inspirational material to get you thinking about role-playing games and such. I'm hoping that this will help my children decide to try to play and pick up some dice for a change. However, they're enjoying the video game for right now. I'm going to create the weapons for the heroes in the game. So we have Dritz du Erden, we have Caddy Bree, Brunor Battlehammer, and Wolfgar the Barbarian. So we'll see what happens, and I will take and create the content as best I can in Fantasy Grounds. I'm going to borrow some lore off some wiki guides and such. I'm going to focus on creating the items themselves. So we have a couple swords, we have a bow, we have a warhammer, we have a battle axe, we have a shield, we have a quiver, and a couple other items to make. So each hero has at least one or two magic items. So we want to take a look at each hero individually, and then we're also going to look at the individual items. So I'm going to start with Dritz, since he's the most popular character by far. I haven't even created his character sheet yet because I want to have all of his assets done. So I have a token and I have a portrait photo set up on his character sheet, but I want to go ahead and start building all the magic items for these particular characters. So let's get started. So I'm using the 5th edition rule set. The game I'm using, or the platform, is Fantasy Grounds Unity, the latest version. The content has been updated. I have a lot of material loaded. So if I go into the actual content in the interface, if I come down to the bottom right, here's the library. And in the library, I have some custom content. You can see I got some Rob 2E stuff loaded in case I need magic items and stuff. I have the Legend of the Crystal Shard. I might need something out of there. I have a lot of the core rulebooks loaded. And I have some supplemental things that might help, like treasure and stuff that gives lore and some maps and those sort of things. So I'm going to build these characters out a little at a time. So right now I'm going to build all the magic items for all the characters. And there's quite a few items. So I think I'm going to do it by character so I don't get overwhelmed. So I'm going to start with Dritz's weapons. And I know he has 2 blades. And I think he's had a 3rd weapon before that was destroyed at one time. I don't know if I'm going to make that, but he definitely has a few magic items on him. So I'm going to do a little digging in the lore, and I want you to see the process so that you can kind of do the same thing for your own games. It doesn't necessarily have to be Dritz and Forgotten Realms. It can be any game setting you want, but it's just kind of more of the process I want to show you. So one of the harder things to do in Fantasy Grounds is to make weapons. When I say harder, I mean time-consuming and tedious, not necessarily hard. So I will go into the items on the right-hand side, the banner, and I want to pull up items. And if you have the items selected, and I had it actually filtered, but if you go to all, that's where all the weapons are, and that's from all the sources that you have in your library. So that's taking everything I have and putting it in one place. So if you want to narrow it down, you can actually go to just weapons or armor or some templates, or you can use the forge. I have my own group created, so I went and added this little green plus button up here on the top right, and I went ahead and make my own group, and I called it the Dark Alliance Weapons, because I don't have anything made yet, so that's why it's empty. So I'm going to start with Dritz's 2 scimitars, which are both magical in nature, but I want to get some notes taken so that I have an idea of what I'm building. I know they're magical. One was like equivalent to like a Frostbrand type weapon, so I'm going to take those notes down and kind of scan through them. So I'm going to go onto the internet and take a look at the wiki guides, and I'm going to take a look at Dritz and see what I can find on him. And there's a lot of things about his backstory, and there's things about his role in the video games and also in the in the other materials such as the Fantasy Grounds or the role-playing tabletop books. and in novels and such. So we'll see what comes out of this. So the first weapon that he ended up getting was a scimitar, and there's two of them that have nicknames. There's Twinkle and Icing Death. He has a figurine called the Figurine of Wondrous Power, which is his Black Panther Guinevere, and he has a pair of bracers of Blinding Strike. Those were his main weapons. He also has leather gloves. His armor is an enchanted suit of mithril chainmail, and it's augmented by wearing a spider silk shirt underneath it. And then under his armor, that thing would kind of protect against his enemies' weapons and such. So I'm going to take all that information and copy and paste it into the notes. He also had Tomaril Heartseeker as a bow, but he gave it away to Caddy Bree at one point. So I'm going to make his main two weapons first, and then I'll start making all the other ones. Some weapons take a little longer, especially the ones that have a lot of lore attached to them. He also has a whistle that will call basically a unicorn, and he's got a ring of elemental command. It's got probably a ring of fire resistance, those sort of things. So we'll see what happens. So I don't want to intend to really make everything. Probably just the main weapons, but we'll see. So now what we're going to do is go into the items area, and I'm going to create the item, but I want to get some of the main information first. So I'm going to go ahead and do just the main lore. So I'm going to start with his first favorite weapon, which is Twinkle. So Twinkle is a scimitar. It was found in one of the books where he had spent time in the north, and he found it in a dragon's lair, a white dragon, that he and Wolfgar had found together when they fought this dragon. So Twinkle has its own entry here. It's supposedly a +5 scimitar, which is a defending or a defender, or a +2 defending scimitar. So I definitely want to take that information and put that in Fantasy Grounds and look for something equivalent. Interestingly enough, it is basically it has the stats, and it's partially emphatic, and it could impart weak base emotions upon its wielder. So it does have some kind of sentience to it, which is interesting. That makes the weapon a lot more unique and not so standard. And there's some other properties of this weapon that I had discovered when I was researching it. So some of this lore is made up, some of it comes from actual content or books, and then some of it we'll embellish for ourselves to fit into Fantasy Grounds. So it's really not anything that has to be exact. You're really just trying to have fun with it, but it's kind of nice to have a cool weapon that has a little backstory to it. So he found this weapon in a lair of a white dragon when he was spending time up north in his younger years. So Twinkle is one of his, or at least was one of his main weapons. So we will get more information on it. So we know it's either a +5 defender or a +2 scimitar of defending. So I'm going to go to all and see if there's anything like that. Slicing defender, grim defender. Let's try just defend. All right, so here's Scimitar. So I don't see a anything really that close. Let me try Frostbrand. Yeah, so I'm going to have to make a lot of this, so it's not that big of a deal. What I will do, though, is I'll take one of the existing scimitars and copy it and then change the properties of it. That's generally what you want to do when you're creating content, is just start with something as sort of like a template or a platform that allows you to kind of get started easier instead of starting from scratch. I want to see if I can find anything else. Okay, so Twinkle, Twinkle, Twinkle. Okay, so it's a left-handed defensive scimitar. It was forged by the elves of old. So this is the kind of thing that makes the game more interesting. It's not just a +2 or +5 blade. You know, it has other qualities to it, which are more lore, story-based type things. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that down. And I went ahead and got the link. And in Fantasy Grounds, if you put the link in the chat and you hit enter, it will create a link for you. And you would do this if you wanted to link to a website. So I'm going to drag and drop it. And that's the information. And I can click on that. It'll take me to the website. So I did a little extra work and made it so where I can actually get to the information quicker if I want to. But right now I'm actually on the page, so I don't have to worry too much right now. But later on, if you want to go back to it, it's easier. So again, I just copied and pasted the URL or the website, put it in the chat area, hit enter, and it creates a link. Then you just drag that link to whatever text document you're working on in Fantasy Grounds, and that'll link it directly to a website, which is clickable, and it'll take you straight there. So it says that Twinkle was Dritz Duerden's left-handed defensive scimitar. And it was forged by the elves of old, which is probably like the first progenitor race of the elves, something like that. It's kind of crazy how technology and magic and things were a lot stronger in the beginning, and they kind of degenerate over the years. I think that's a common theme amongst a lot of different cultures and superstitions and beliefs. It says that the lore, the story piece of it says it was forged by the magic of the powers that all the surface elves hold dear, of the stars of the moon and the mysteries of their souls. You deserve it, Dritz Duerden, and it will serve you well. So this is when it was given to him when he was in the he was going to the Harples area where they lived, and he was helping them out. And this is when Artemis and Trary had taken Regis away, so their little thief companion. So this is some of the lore that goes behind the weapon. So it's important to have a little bit of this information to make the story part. If you're just a player and you're just looking for the stat bonuses, you're also missing out on the lore or the story that goes behind it. So it's important to consider that. And I actually made this a chat bubble that you can send out to the chat. And this was Malachor Harpil that said it. So I'm going to make him the speaker. So if I hit Control Tab inside of this chat box here, hit Control Tab, it creates the speaker section. And his name was Malachor Harpil. So he was like a spellcaster from the Harpil family. They're like a family of wizards, basically. So I'm going to take his name and copy and paste it in here. Oops. So Mark Cole Harper, or Malchor Harper. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but that's basically Malchor Harper. So now when I click on this, it says that Malchor Harper is the one that said that. So that's a quote from the actual story. All right, so that's basically Twinkle. So it's left-handed, it's partially sentient, and it has the powers of a +5 scimitar defender or a +5 defending scimitar. So it doesn't look like we have any of those. So let me see what the stats are on those, because that's important to kind of know. So Icing Death was a +3 Frostbrand. Twinkle was originally a +5 defender, but I think it got broken, so it ended up becoming a little bit less. So let's see. Yep. Said that Dritz is very intelligent, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so it ended up being a +2 defender blade. So that's because it broke and it was put back together, but it wasn't as powerful as it was prior. So it just says that it was slightly weakened. Yeah, I like the lore here, that this is from the Forgotten Realms. So twinkle, twinkle, little star. The Dritz was trained with the scimitar throughout his early days, and then as he got older and more advanced, he ended up acquiring some magical ones. So we're building the Twinkle weapon right now, and I'm looking for all the lore and the stats that I can find for it, because it's got a lot of history. So I want to make sure I capture that, and I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. But basically, it's Icing Death's companion scimitar. He holds it in his left hand, and it's worn on his right hip. Driss received Twinkle from the mage Malchor Harpil when he was chasing Artemis and Triri after the assassin had captured Regis in the novel called Stream of Silvers. Twinkle was first mentioned in the next novel, The Halfling's Gem. According to the second edition Dungeons & Dragons rules, it is a defender +5, while again in 3.0, in that edition, it was a slightly tweaked +2 defending scimitar. The defending property has been revealed in between the lines if read closely. Every time Dritz was in combat and there was a blow headed towards him, Twinkle seemed to always be there to block. Forged by the elves, Twinkle has a star-cut sapphire in its pommel, and the blade glows blue when danger is near. So that's pretty telling to kind of give you an idea of what sort of stats it might have. So I'm going to bring up just a scimitar and see what it comes up with. I know there's a Frostbrand in other rule sets, but 5th edition kind of bounces around on what is considered canon and what isn't. So there's a double scimitar, primary and secondary. I don't want to use that. Let's see. Let me go to the... I'm going to bring up the monster, or excuse me, the... I don't have the Dungeon Master's Guide. So that one has all of the, or most of the base magic items. So I want to make sure I have that loaded. That way I'm not spending a lot of time on the, on the properties of the weapon. I can borrow something. and kind of build off of that instead of trying to recreate it. Because that makes it much easier when you're using Fantasy Grounds. If you already have content, might as well just use some of the other stuff as a template and just kind of alter it and build off of it until you get familiar. So that's what I'm doing now, is I'm going to load up some magic items, and then I'm going to see what it all comes with. Okay, so the DM's guide is loaded in the library. And I'm going to, again, do another search so I can make sure I've captured all the different variations of scimitars. There's quite a few. So here's the Defender. So it's probably close to what I'm going to get, or this +2 scimitar. So I'm going to look at the scimitar from here, and this says it's +3, which is close. I mean, that's kind of what you want. That's a good happy medium. But it's usually the first time you attack the sword in your turns, you can transfer the bonus to your armor class instead. That's a pretty interesting weapon. So it's not quite there, but close. So it says you get a +3 bonus to attack and damage. And then the first time you attack with the sword, you can transfer some or all of the bonus to your armor class instead of using the bonus on any attacks that turn. That is kind of cool. I actually like that. Might use that. And then there's also just a regular +2 scimitar. So that could be something that we use to help create this. And then there's some other different blades here that you can use a basic scimitar if you want to. But I think this +2 is going to give us the base that we want, and then we can decide if we want to use this stuff here, the Defender stuff. So I might just kind of reword it and kind of fix it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is make a copy of the +2 scimitar. And all that does is it creates another version of it. And when you open this up, you'll be able to edit it. See, right now, the originals you can't really do anything with. And I'm also going to make a copy of the original weapon, or the Defender, so I have a copy of both. So I can edit both of those if I need to. So if I go to the Defender, that's that one. So Fantasy Grounds has a thing called the Forge, where you can kind of combine the properties of two weapons. So what I can do is I could take the one of these and use a template. So let me look at the templates here. So the magical template, that's a blank one, so we don't want that. But if you go into the items, there is a template area on the top. And then you can go down here and you can look for something that's close to what you're trying to achieve. So there's these different armors and weapons and that sort of thing. But if we look under scimitar, let's see what they offer here for scimitar. Probably just a +1 template. Scimitar of Speed. Let's see what that does. Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, you can make a one more attack with its bonus action. So maybe I'll use that as a template. So that way we can get the most out of the scimitar. So there's some choices that I have to make. So I'll take the Defender thing out of the question, or I might take this +2 because it's kind of redundant. Take that out of the way and go with the Scimitar of Defender. So I will use the Scimitar of Speed as my template, and I will use the Defender as the main weapon. And now they're both weapon types, so it should combine them technically. And then we'll edit it from there. So once I'm done, I'm going to hit Forge Item. And now it's a +5 Defender. So it added the bonuses together. How funny. That's not what we're going to end up with, but that's a kind of a bonus as to, having both of those combined together. So now I'm going to unlock this. And so if you're going to use the Forge, they kind of have to be like items, like weapon, armor. Can't just have anything. Now this is going to be the Scimitar Defender of Speed. So this is an image of the Defender, which, I'll probably just leave that because I'm not selling this commercially. But if you want to get rid of the image, you can. So maybe I'll add my own image later. I can get something off Pixabay so it won't be copyright. It says you gain a +2 bonus. I'm going to say it's yeah, +2. That's +5 is way over the top. So +5, this is going to be 2 now. I'll leave the value and the weight and these properties because and it doesn't need magic twice. So it's finesse, it's light, it does 1d6 slashing. That seems a little low. I thought scimitars do 1d8. That sounds broken. So 1d8 slashing is what I think it should be. I don't think 1d6 is right. Let me look at a different scimitar and take a look. I'm pretty sure 1d8 is the base damage. Let's see, 1d8 slashing. So if I go to items again, and I just look up a regular scimitar, it is 1d6. How strange. I thought it was a 1d8. Okay, 1d6 it is. So I guess for being a light weapon, it makes sense. Maybe I was thinking of a saber or something like that. But anyhow, so I just changed the bonus so it wouldn't be too ridiculously high. And then I'll change this description a little bit. It's basically, it says you gain +2 attacks on damage and rolls, and in addition, you can make an additional attack as a bonus action on each of your turn. That's more of the speed thing, but when you get into the actual lore of the weapon, it says the first time you do it, you can transfer some or all of your sword's bonus to your armor class. Instead of using a bonus for attacks, you reduce the damage or the bonus to your attack by +1 and gain +2 bonus to AC. The adjusted bonuses remain in effect until your next turn, although you must hold the sword to gain a bonus to the AC from it. So you have to have the sword in your possession. It does require attunement. It's a legendary weapon, so that makes sense. I'm going to change this to Twinkle. So I'll say scimitar. Actually, I'll say Twinkle, comma, or Twinkle scimitar, comma, +2. And that will be the name of the actual item. And it's a martial weapon. It's legendary. It's worth a lot of cash. It says 7,900. I'll just say 80,000 gold. It was 79,000 and some change. I think I'll just turn it to 780 just to make it a nice round. 780,000 gold for that thing. It weighs 3 pounds. There's a description for it. Okay, that's cool. So that is basically one of the 2 scimitars. And giving it this +2, I think, is better than 5. That's ridiculous. Especially in 5th edition, there's no need for it. So that is basically how we're going to do it. So it's a D6. Yeah, that's right. You're absolutely right, Mad Beard Man. Is that guy. Okay. So, yes, I agree, Mad Beard Man. That is definitely... It's right. I looked it up, and it's actually right. So the other thing is I want to put some of the lore in here. So I think putting this stuff in here is a good idea for the lore. So in the description, I will leave this. I'll just say that this information here is, the gospel as far as how to use the item. But for the lore, I'm going to make another line and put lore down here. And then I want to take and I'm going to make this a header, so I'll hit Control-2. And then I'm going to copy and paste the text from here, so whoever gets this character, they can read the history of the weapon. I think that's a good idea. So I don't know if I need all of it, but definitely most of this on the bottom is really good. And I might take some of that other stuff from below. So I'm going to take all this and hit Control-J. And actually, I'll just bump it up so it doesn't so spaced apart. There we go. I don't mind having a line break in there, but I don't want this 2 lines worth of line breaks. It's way too much. It's like 5 of them. There we go. And then that way it's kind of closer together. It's pretty good as far as a weapon goes. So you got some lore here, and you also have a little bit of the feel of the item. So you're not just you just have some magic item. You don't care what it does or why it is the way it is. It's important to have the lore, especially a powerful item like that. It should really have a little bit of a backstory. Now, if you didn't want to identify it, and it can lock this, you can turn the identification off, but then you have to have some sort of description of it. So you could say, it looks like a katana or something like that, but, everyone knows this sword pretty much, Twinkle, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is. So that's the first weapon. I think the next one will be the Frostbrand sword, which is something that I definitely want to take a look at, because that's his second sword, basically. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at Icing Death and see what that brings us. Icing Death. So this is a scimitar. And looks pretty cool. So yeah, it's a +3 scimitar. It's his right-handed weapon. So I'm going to go ahead and take some of that lore. Yeah, this is the one that he found before. This is more of his offensive blade. I think this is the one he actually got off the frost creature, not the Twinkle. Twinkle came later. So I want to grab and take some of the lore from that and go ahead and put that down below here. So we're going to say Icing Death. There's a little bit of lore for it, just so we can get started. And then I'll get into I know it's like a Frostbrand type weapon, so we'll see. I think it does cold damage. And it came out of the rugged, the tundra up north where all the barbarians are. It's basically what this thing came out of. They defeated a dragon in that area up there up north with. So when Wolfgar became a man, basically, he had his rite of passage. So I will take this Frostbrand. It was also a Frostbrand weapon. Protects you against fire and such, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that. It has powers of a frost weapon, which detected or fed on fire, it would start to glow and a blue shimmer when it was activated. So I'll go ahead and grab that. So there's a lot of lore behind this thing, so I wanted to make that a thing for the stream, because I want these weapons to have a meaning. I get kind of burned out on stuff when it just doesn't have any story or lore. I mean, it's great as a player, you just hack things up, but you have to know how to use the weapon too. And then you're going to have to understand why it even has those powers to begin with. And there may be some situations where the powers won't work, or they're canceled out by another weapon, or who knows. So there's a lot of different things, but it's known as a Frostbrand weapon, and it's when Wolfgar and Dritz kill the dragon, and they found that's when they found this thing. It's pretty cool. It's got a lot of history in it, and it definitely worth putting that out there. So I'm going to look for like a frost blade or something, and then modify that. That way I can get the feel of it, and not just, So let me take a look at that. Yep. So I'm getting rid of some of the excess text that I grabbed from the internet. Okay, so it's a Frostbrand +3, basically. So I want to grab, again, I want to go to the items area, and I'm going to look for Frostbrand. So there's a scimitar Frostbrand right here. So I'm going to make a copy of that. and then I'm going to open that up and see what it entails. Yeah, this is exactly it. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock it, but this is a +3 weapon. So let's see. So it's got a +3 bonus, and basically it is what it is. I mean, it's one of those things where we don't have to change a whole lot. So that's cool. So really, we just got that. The only thing I'm going to put on the end is +3, just so the wielder remembers that. And it has +3 to damage and to attack. So it's a little bit more of an offensive weapon, and it's in basically in his right hand when he wields it. So I'm going to take this and drag this into my new group, the Dark Alliance weapons. So now you have 2 scimitars. So if I go to his items area and I put them in his inventory,
last hour walking around,
they should be able to parse, and we'll see if they work right. So when you're doing that, you want to check on the actual. You want to check the actual combat tracker. And then I'm going to grab the weapons and put them on the sheet. I want to make sure they work correctly. So I'm going to go and put the items on the inventory. Make sure they work right. So if I go to my Dark Alliance weapons, and then I just get rid of my search filter. Where's my other scimitar? Maybe it's uncategorized. Yeah, so those are going to, this twinkle is going to go into my Dark Alliance folder too.
no notarize.
Okay, here we go. Yep, I was on mute, and what I was saying is that I'm going to put those on the character sheet, and since they weren't identified in the inventory area, they weren't picking up the attunement. So I had to make sure that they're identified first. And then I checked off the attunement tracker. And now that they're on the sheet here, you're only getting part of this. You're getting the weapon and the damage from it. And then here's the, this, and this is basically the main pieces of it. However, there are other pieces of the weapon that we're not getting that we should probably add as an actual action for them. So I'll take a look at the description. So I want to look at Frostbrand first. This is the offensive weapon. It's +3. We got all that, but then it does, let's see, when you hit using this weapon, it does an extra 1d6 cold. In addition, while you hold the longsword, you have resistance to fire. So what we're going to do is we can add the cold damage to the weapon. That's a lot easier than making an effect for it. But the thing that sucks about it is maybe you don't want it to do cold damage for some reason, so maybe I will make it an effect, but then that would mean every time you use it you'd have to apply that. So I think I'll just add it to the weapon. So in the properties of the weapon, not only does it do slashing and magic damage, I'm going to add another line, and I'm going to drag the 1d6 up there, and I'm going to put cold. So that takes care of the damage part of it. Okay, that doesn't... Wait, did I do it to the wrong one? Yes, I did. Dang it. So this is not supposed to be on Twinkle, so let me get rid of that. It's supposed to be on the Frostbrand weapon. And this is going to be renamed as something else. So I want to remove Frostbrand from here temporarily, and I'm going to call this Icing Death. That's what it's supposed to be called. And then we'll call it a scimitar, so we know what type of blade it is. +3. So Icing Death, Scimitar, +3. So that's the title of it. Now, does that change the... No, that did not change this. See, that's the thing about weapons is you want to make sure that you change everything at the base level and then add it. If you don't, it won't pick up those changes. So you need to add it to the base weapon, which I've done right there. Go ahead and drag and drop it onto the inventory area. Yep. So it says I have 3 of those. I only have 1. Okay, so I just want to make sure that the weapon was correct all the way through, not just on the character sheet. So then you have the 1d6 slashing, and then I added the cold, but see, you can change the wording here to say X amount of damage, or finesse, damage, slashing, and cold, and it would add that property. So if you wanted to word this properly, let me see if that'll work. And 1d6 cold damage. Let's see if that helps. That way you don't have to manually add that every time you add the item. So let me remove this one off of the character sheet. And then I want to go into the actual item and make sure I have it in there. Not just editing on the sheet, because that's not a good practice. The right way to do it is to go to the item itself. And then you want to take and update that so that it's, that's true all the way through. If you only do it on your character sheet, you delete it, you're going to have to come back and add it again. So let me actually edit this. I'll say 1d6 slashing and 1d6 cold damage. That should fix that. So you want to make sure that you have that statement in here before you add it to your character sheet. Now I'll be able to test to see if I made the right edit. I know it's something like that where you can add the extra damage type to it. So we have that. Let's go to inventory. It's identified. Let's drag and drop it over there. Okay, I want to attune it. And then I want to take a look at the Actions tab. Yeah, see, I'm probably... how did... Oh, oh my god. So, I added the twinkle twice, so I want icing death that I've... Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, icing death. Is it right? Nope, it isn't. So, I got to change the wording on here the correct way. So maybe I forgot a period. It could be something really small. And 1d6 cold damage. Maybe it needs a period at the end. So 1d6 slashing damage. And cold damage. Let's see if that works. I know it's some kind of thing like that where you got to have the correct wording. So this is what I'm saying when you make items, you got to kind of make sure they're fixed correctly on the item level and then put them on the character. So let me see if that even helped. Nope. So I'm doing something wrong here. Let's see here. So I want to make sure, I'm going to go, I got a handy little sheet that I use. It's a PDF for the wording for like NPCs and stuff. And when you have the phrasing and coding correct, that will actually parse correctly. So weapon attacks would be, okay. It's separated by the comma. Okay. In addition, in the case of magic, will allow for the being dealt with. Okay, yeah. The other tags are silver and adamantine. They can be more than one tag. For example, slashing, comma, silver, comma, magic. So, for example, a damage dealt would be, oh, it's plus, not and. Okay, let me change that. So I'm going to remove it off the character sheet again because it's broken. I didn't word it right. So it's 1d6 slashing, and then the wording is actually saying plus 1d6 cold damage. Pretty sure that's what it was missing. Okay, so I fixed the description there. Let me make sure I did the right one. I didn't do the wrong weapon. Okay. So icing death, back you go. Okay, yes, that fixed it. So it added the 1d6 cold damage because of the wording. So if I had done that correct the first time, I wouldn't be going through all this. So just get to know the syntax and the wording. So I had and, it's supposed to be plus. And that was the reason why it didn't work out. So that's basically how you build the character weapons for this particular build. There's some other things. Now the description also says for, let's see, icing death, you get in freezing temperatures, the blade sheds bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for additional 10 feet. So what I'm going to do is make a lighting effect for this. And this is something you might want to do occasionally, not all the time, but occasionally for your weapons. So rather than recreating the wheel, I'm first going to make just a regular effect in the effects area so that it can be a condition that I drag onto the character when they are in the situation. It says in freezing temperatures, the blade sheds bright light. So if it's not cold, then it's not doing that, apparently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an effect that is going to be used in that situation. So I can also make it an effect on the character sheet, but I'm also going to make it an effect in the presets. That way, I'm not getting buggered up by doing it wrong. And this will help me with the syntax as well. So what I want to do is make a lighting effect. So this item gives off that lighting when it's freezing out. So it has to be like 32 degrees Fahrenheit or less. Or if you're inside of a cold area that's like a, magically enhanced cold or something like that. Or Ream and the Frost Maiden would be a good idea. Okay, so you have some presets. This thing is going to be more like a spell light type thing. So I'm going to copy or model it after that somewhat. What I want to do is go to the options menu And here it says token lights. So if you open up the light spell, you're going to basically copy this, but you're going to make your own. So what I'm going to call this is icing death or something like that. So I know it's part of that sword. And it's the glow that comes off of it when you use it in cold. So I'm just going to put cold in parentheses so I know what it's for. The color is going to be like a light blue. I'm going to turn the opacity down just a touch. And that way when I use the weapon, it kind of has its own signature lighting to it. And you kind of want it light, otherwise it's going to have some color to it, but if you put it down here, it's going to be really hard to see in the dark. So you kind of want it a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to turn the alpha down a little bit so it's a little bit more transparent because it's a darker color. Not a whole lot, just maybe down to 220. And I'm going to click OK. So that's going to be the actual color of the light. And then for the effect itself, I'm going to take a look. So see, you can have this light spell. But the description is that in freezing temperatures, it sheds a bright light in a 10-foot area. So here's your bright light. And then it says for the dim light, it says an additional 10 feet. So their fall off is probably going to be like 15. So you see you have 10, 24. See, this exceeds that. So your fall off is probably going to be 15 there. And then here is probably going to be 25 or 30. We'll just say 30. And then does it have any animation? No. The speed is going to be 100 because we don't have to worry about that. And it has to have the tag light. And the duration is going to depend on the, how long it takes to expire. So I will say that for duration, we'll leave it blank. I don't think it needs a duration. It's situational. So we'll leave it there, but it's basically one of those things where you have to put it on and remove it when you're done. And that should take care of the lighting for that. And then I want to write an effect that's like that for the actual character sheet. So that's just so you have a way to... basically, so you can take a look at the properties and then you'll have a reference for it. So now when you drag and drop this, so let me put this Dritz character on the combat tracker first. You always want to have them there to check these things out. And then I'm going to take the effect and drag and drop it onto the character itself. And why didn't that work? Oh, because I'm doing it from here, not the actual menu. I got it. Okay, so I'm going to close those. And if I close the effects and I turn it back on or put it back on, it should bring up a new list and it should have, here's the Icing Death glow. So if I drag and drop that on there it is, 1010 light. So that's what the effect should look like. And then you're going to put the RGB value if you need to. So that would be a case of coding this, but then also putting the number behind it, which is the RGB value, which is basically whatever this number is. So this DC whatever number is part of the code that you're going to put into your character on the effect. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new group, and I'll just call these weapon or magic item effects. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to add action. And this action is just going to be, I'll just say Icing Death. And I'll say glow. And then in parentheses, I'll put cold just so we remember when to use it. And then the radius is 10 feet basically, just so we have an idea. And then when you go to the actual effect, I'm just going to put Icing Death, glow, semicolon. Then you need light as all in caps with a colon after it. And then 10/10 light. And then the RGB code. So that way, and then this targeting will be on self, because you're not really going to loan the sword out too much. You're going to leave the rounds as they are, because we don't know when it's actually going to expire. So that should be the actual effect for the, in case you get in that situation. So now when we go to combat and actions, let me take this effect off of here, because that's what that looks like. So when I take that off, I put this on there, that should be that, and when you're on a map or something, it should glow. So I can test that. Let me see if I can find an image. Just give me a few minutes and I'll take a look and see what I can find. So what I've done effectively is I added the Icing Death Glow just to the preset, so that just in case I can drag and drop it on the character. But also on the character sheet itself, I made an effect for it, because that's something that the sword can do. And now that you have lighting, you can automate that. So Icing Death gives off a glow when it's cold out. When you draw the weapon, you can extinguish all non-magical flames within 30 feet. This property can be used no more than once per hour. So what we can do is just make basically like a note. It's really not going to do anything, but it will put a note in the combat tracker. So I'm going to go ahead and add another action, and this is going to be another effect, and I'm going to call it extinguish flames or something like that. And it says 30 feet, so I'll just put that in there as a note so that we know the range of it, so we don't have to look it up all the time. And then this will not be on yourself. This will just, well, actually, the note will be on yourself, so we can put it there. And then what we'll do is we'll take and you're going to have a resistance to fire too, so we'll add that too. So extinguish flames 30 feet, and we're going to say that, let's see, really doesn't need much else. I'll just say extinguish flames. So this would be a way to keep track of when we're using it. And then expend, we'll say on next action. So when you use it, it will expire, even though, it basically you draw it, you can use it one time in an hour. So what we'll do is we'll set this to where, we'll set it up to where, you can recharge it or whatever in an hour. So we'll see what happens. But basically, that's for the extinguish flame. So it doesn't really do anything mechanically, but it's a note, and you can just say it's not an hour duration. It means it can be recharged in about an hour. So we're going to leave it as it is. So the next thing I'm going to add in this case is the fire resistance. So if you're holding the sword, you have fire resistance. So again, I'm going to right click, add action, and then I'm going to add an actual effect. And then I'm going to open up this and I'm going to say fire resistance, because this is what it does. Fire resistance, semicolon, and now we're going to put the actual syntax. So it's resist in capital letters with colon and then lowercase fire. And it's on yourself. It's infinite unless you drop the blade or something or you lose it. So that's your effects right there for just this one weapon. So then if you're going to do one for the other weapon for Twinkle, you'd have to do the same thing. Or you could do the same thing. You don't have to do anything, to be honest. You can just play it as it is and just use all theater of the mind, but this kind of makes it more complete. So now when you use the weapon, let's say it's glowing now because you're in the snow and it's cold. You're also going to have fire resistance, so you put that on. So if you come across any type of attacks that are fire-based, you'll automatically just take half damage. Your DM won't have to worry about it. So that's something you can do to your players. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a map. I want to see if my actual glowing thing is working right. Is that something you want to test? Yeah, thanks for following Pharaoh, and that's thanks Mad Beer Man for stopping by if you're still around. Ignore the person that's Intra Fasamora 982. It looks like a spammer. Anyway, so I'm going to go back to the actual items here, and I'm going to test the lighting for the sword. And like I said, I made it up here in the effects too, just in case. So we'll see which one works or if it's broken. So I want to go ahead and grab the. I'll put this aside for right now, just in case we want to look at that. I'm going to go ahead and grab a map. I don't care which one it is. So images. I'm going to search for the word map. Here we go. So here's a map. Not a very good one. Don't want that one. That's a map. Come on, let's get something that's actually useful to us. Let's see. Let's go to... Let's see. Here's the KS's maps for his. Let's go to the Dragon's Lair. There we go. Perfect. Dragon's Lair it is. So we'll just say this is the part where they went in to go kill the dragon or whatever. So if I unlock this, it really doesn't have anything on it right now. No line of sight or anything. So let me turn that on just so I can see. Now this is what the players are going to see. Well, Dritz actually has, he should have, dark vision, but I haven't completed the character at all. So I'm just going to check the lighting part of it for the actual blade. So what I'm going to do is make sure I have a grid. And I'll go ahead and put that on there. That's the grid. And then I'm going to change it a little bit to like a yellow so it shows up a little bit more. But then I'll fade the alpha channel a little bit so it's not so obnoxious. And then go up here and there we go. So at the very minimum, that's what I want to put on here. So now I'm going to go back to play mode. So I don't have any line of sight, but I want to check the character. So I'm going to drop Dritz on top of the map. And there's his glow for his blade. Perfect. So when it moves, so does the blade. And if you see that little fog of war, that's part of his like muscle memory to his eyes. So that's how that works. So that is exactly what you want to do. So dim light, bright light, and then you have here's the drop off in the light, and then it drops off even further out here. So that's exactly right. That's exactly what you want. That's basically how you add a magical light to something if you're going to do that. Now, if I had him completely built, Dritz would also have a pretty good view of the rest of the room. So that's just kind of letting you know. And this is his preview of what it looks like for him when he's without his sight. And he moves around the map. Kind of has a little bit of memory of where he went before. So it's kind of like a fog of war. And you have to claim the token, and you should have it on the combat tracker to test out your lighting effect. So that's pretty much what I wanted right there. That's not bad. So that is Icing Death with its glow. It has fire resistance. It has some magical properties built into it, which is the oh geez, why do I have so many on here? Must have added them like 50 times or something. Well, we'll fix that. So he only gets one of each. Okay. I think it's when I was making the sheet here. Yeah, see, now I ruined the bond with the weapon. Ah, dang it. I deleted the wrong one. But anyways, so let me reattune these. Maybe that'll help. And then I'll equip it. That might help too. See if that goes in this. Yeah, anyways, so that is basically in a nutshell what, let's see, Twinkle, there's Icing Death. Let me drag and drop that down to the shortcuts, and then go to inventory and drag it back in there. See if that, well, I want to delete it first. So I'm going to delete Icing Death. And, oh, it needs to be carried too. Let's see if that helps. Yeah. So I need to get that, put it on here. Icing Death. Huh. Didn't work that way. Oh well. So basically, when Icing Death is working, when I have it done right, it's going to actually be on the sheet, not just a note. So there you go. That's basically how you make a magic item. I'm going to do this every week for each character. So later this week, or maybe sometime I'll make the other weapons for the other characters. So I still have like Guinevere, the statuette thing, and I have his bracers of defense or whatever, blinding strike, and then there's a couple other items that I'm going to put in his inventory. But I don't want to bore you with all the minutia, but just to give you an idea of how to kind of spruce up your magic items, especially if they're legendary or if it's something important. So like this is kind of important, right? You got finesse and light, and you got properties on there that need to happen. This one you got +2, you can switch it, you can get a bonus attack on it. So this one we don't have to really make an effect on it, but if we have something else, we might. And then he has magical armor, so we're going to have to take a look at that. And so he's got long ways to go when it comes to fleshing them out. So that's why I want to build all the items first, because that's annoying. These are stuff that you have to drag and drop on the character sheet. So you want to build all that kind of stuff first. And again, I just went into the items area and I made my own group up here with the drop down and added a group. And then I just took an existing weapon and drug it back into this list. And then I drug the copies that I made into my own group. In this case, I called it the Dark Alliance weapons. So this is going to be all their gear, like their armor and whatever else they have in their inventory that's magical. And then if there's any special items like tokens or things that I need, I'll make those. And I'm actually going to make just find some photos of some scimitars and put those in the maps and images area, and then link those to the items. So not only is it going to have this extra stuff, but you're going to actually have some. See, this one looks pretty good. That's pretty close to what he has, so we don't have to worry about that. But if you didn't have the artwork, you can definitely put it there. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So that one has it. I don't think Twinkle, it had like a generic one. I didn't like it too much, but it did come with a picture. So a lot of the powerful weapons actually have the weapons attached or the items with artwork. So that's good enough for now. I think I babbled for a good hour or so. So I think I'm going to call it a night. Thanks for joining and checking this out. Just wanted to kind of give you an idea of building a magic item and also giving it some flavor, adding some lighting to it. Also learning how to add an effect, a lighting effect to your effects button so you have them at the ready. Occasionally you'll have spells that have lighting that you might want to add. So like I said in review, you'd go up to your options, go to token lights, and here you can create and add your own lighting. So if you, like for instance, I added the glow for icing death, but if you wanted to make your own, just open up one of the existing ones. Like in this case, I use the light spell as a model. And then you would just take that and create your own. And then you can, change the color of the light. You can change if it has animation or not, and the ranges of the distance for actual vision. So that's just something you can do to help you along the way. 600 rounds is 1 hour. So you have to do this thing in rounds. You can't do it now in hours because it doesn't show up in the combat tracker that way. So make sure you convert anything other than rounds into rounds. That way it comes out correctly. So anyways, that's all I got. You guys have a good weekend coming up. It is Founders Day weekend next month, and right now we have Pathfinder 2 going on. So if you're a Pathfinder 2 fan, definitely check that out. We got a few more days. We're going to have a symposium with Paizo and with Trenlo regarding the Pathfinder 2 rule set. We'll show a little bit of that. I want to talk to them about the new Advanced Heritage Guide, and I also want to talk to Paizo about their efforts towards virtual tabletop. So that'll be this Saturday at noon Pacific time or at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. And if you are a Fantasy Grounds fan or you're interested in the virtual tabletop, check out Fantasy Grounds College. That's a community that we run that's just a pretty much like a big fan club, but we also help people learn the platform and such. And then we also check out the actual official Fantasy Grounds Discord. You can find games there. You'll get more official answers there, and you also will meet a lot of people there too. So we have a pretty good sized server, but their server is actually a lot bigger, and it's been established a little bit longer. So if you're looking for games or you want some really good help, you can go there too. We have a Ask the Experts area, but mostly we're trying to engage with people and get them kind of hands-on training, or we do videos like this. But nonetheless, check out the community. It's pretty good. So take care. Have a good weekend. Happy gaming, and I'll see you around. Bye-bye. See you next week.